Hi, everybody. This is Joanna Michaels and Christopher Stephen Jacobs. And Chris had an itching to do a series of shows talking about the Sasquatch people since it is so popular right now. So we entitle this, The Lifting Presents the World of Sasquatch. So today is January 24th, 2019, the day before this one's birthday, that we would start with a generalized discussion about the different factions or groups of Sasquatch that are out there, and then we'll just build upon the discussion. Chris is hopeful to get some friends to join along the way for this series. So thank you all for joining us. So we talked about this, Chris, and we thought it would be really important to give people perspective about the Sasquatch and try to answer some of the most common questions that are out there, like why don't we see them a lot and things like that. So probably to give perspective, you've done a lot of different talks with people talking about the different Sasquatch and the different groups that are out there. So I guess today we're just going to start off with a summary of all of the different groups that you know about to give people perspective. And we want to start with what we currently know of as the most enlightened or higher frequency Sasquatch groups that are out there. So go ahead.
Well, the ones that I currently know about are the ones we know of as the Anakim, or they would be their elder squatch, the ones that actually are the ones the natives call the ones from beyond the sun. They're the ancestral line of the Sasquatches you generally see today. There are many different groups of Sasquatches. Some are short, some are very tall, some are good, some aren't. And there are some in between, like us. I've known some Sasquatches to be very nice and some to be total dickheads. So we had a group of them show up here, a whole family unit. All of them were smiling except for one adolescent Sasquatch who was frowning. And just like any teenager, that's how they act, just like ours. They've been known to steal things off of like porches, out of sheds, things of that nature. Now, the ancestral line, they're more like we would consider them ascended masters, but that's not necessarily an apt term anymore. But they're the original ancestral line. Then you have their descendants, which are like how we are to the other humans that are out there in the galaxy. Very similar comparison.
And the Anakim are spacefaring.
Yes, the Anakim are spacefaring. Even some of the in-betweeners are spacefaring. People have reported that there are Sasquatches in Pleiadian ships waving at them. My mother actually saw Fuma doing that. And he's not necessarily one of the elder Squatches, but he's the grandson of one of the elder Squatches. He was, to give you an age comparison here, he was at least 3 or 4 when Jamestown was in operation.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows how old Fuma is, and his brother Seymour. Actually, I believe Seymour is a little older. But that's the age comparison there. But Fuma is more like somebody that is in their 30s. That's kind of like how he acts. But he's actually over 200. So his grandfather, Sufas, he's an Anakim. He's the elder for this area around Prescott, Arizona, and some of, I believe, Sedona and the in-between areas. Each area has its own clan leader, or each designated area that they claim has their own clan leader. Sufas is one of them. And I don't know the names of the others. I know there are other elder Squatch throughout the United States and the planet. They govern their own little tribes, and those particular leaders govern the whole tribe, basically keeping a code of conduct in place. from what I understand it. The Anakim tend to give the rules.
And the Anakim are telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, they can speak as well, but they're mainly, I think they're mainly telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the group's descendants from them, depending on what level they are currently at, some are telepathic and some are not yet telepathic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. In North Carolina, we ran across a Squatch leader that was there who was not telepathic, and he communicated in nothing but hand signs. And it took one of the elder Squatch to come in to build that telepathic bridge. You see, he was more like us, but he was using little hand signs. You'll come across some that were next or several generations down the road that they will do nothing but hand signs and symbols. That I don't want to say de-evolve, that's the wrong word, but the telepathic skills started to go away, and they reverted back to a simpler way of communicating over the centuries. You see, that's what happened. Some of them were left behind in the old war. That's what happened to the giants as well. Some of their descendant lineages got left here, and some of them degenerated down into cannibalism and everything. So that's what happened to that group. Something similar happened with the Sasquatch, where then they varied off into another schism, a genetic line, which became the face eaters. Found out that particular line was from another timeline that got integrated into ours as well. There was another degenerated version of them from another timeline. Well, we won't get into that part of it just yet, but
And it makes sense because, just like us, going from an experience from darkness to light, it's, like us, we're refinding ourselves, we're refining our skills, we're remembering who we were. And so we started at a different place. And then again, it's hard to find the right word. You can almost say that we've de-evolved. We de-evolved into more of the lower frequency negativity, but we were learning from it. And now we're making our way back up. It really, from what we understand, it doesn't matter actually what race you are. If you are in this spatial parameter of this darkness to light, it happened pretty much to all of the different races out there, including the Sasquatch as well.
Yes, and you'll find that the Anakim are actually returning en masse from the Pleiades. This is why they are starting to govern some of these tribes that are around here. They're trying to bring them back up to that level of thinking, just like with us. Anakim and a lot of the Sasquatch families are trying to help build the bridge of communication with us again, since we were strong allies a very long time ago, before the harvesters divided the world and the system up. We were extremely powerful allies, and we can be again. This is what they are hoping on, but they are also divided sometimes amongst themselves. Now, with the different races of them, very much like us, not often, but you do have some skirmishes between them. You have some skirmishes between them and the dog people. And we'll do another show at some point on the different types of dog people. But this is just mainly focused on Sasquatch. Now, then you have some of the really mixed lineages, like the reptilian lineages, like Yeti, which are basically a hairy white reptilian that evolved to be warm-blooded in the Himalaya mountains, and people think they're looking at an ape or ape lineage, when in fact you have a reptilian, like draconian hybrid that's evolved into that form. That's why Yeti is considered to be more violent. Do they have Sasquatch lineage as well? Yes, but they've been hybrided with a lot of Draco genes, and they act more like the Draco than they do Sasquatch. They're a very degenerated lineage, very similar to Face Eater, and this is why they were very, very violent. But only the Yeti have more powers at their disposal. They can summon earth energies and basically roast people from the inside out and everything. That's why you had those reports of those Russian students that were on the mountain that they showed their bodies and they were all roasted from the inside out. That was the Yeti that did that to them.
So you really have, again, just like different races of humans at different levels of their learning process, you have the exact same thing going on with the Sasquatch group. And depending on humans' interactions with them, then you're going to have a huge, wide variety of different types of experiences that people are having. And it's sometimes rightfully so. The humans that have had the experience are going to say they're dangerous, don't get near them, they're bad. And then you're going to have the other side of the coin where, they're beautiful experiences and
Mhm.
feel really loved and welcome. And so just like with humanity, that is all, that spectrum really is there.
Mhm.
And so, we want to help people understand that. So, again, as we say with everything, you need to be aware of what's around you. Don't make an assumption that everything's good. Don't make an assumption that everything's bad. Get to know, but also, be wise and protect yourself. So, there's a point and again, it's not the proper word, but I don't know what other word to use. If you think of another word, we should start using it. When you say de-evolution, again, wrong word, but you guys know what we mean. When you have the Anakam, and then you have the still more advanced Sasquatch groups where telepathy is still involved,
Mhm.
and there seems to be a greater perspective, greater than in general humanity right now, about life and purpose and growth. And they are able to see what's going on with the humans around them, and they have a lot of empathy and understanding because they see the pressures and they see everything we're going on. So you definitely have groups of Sasquatch here living on this earth that are at that level, and those are the ones that end up coming in and sometimes being protectors and of great support. And if people are trying to reach out for spiritual, a lot of times it would be on that level that you're interacting potentially, with people. And of course, they see their elders, the Anakam. And then you go down, I guess a little bit further, and you may have the Anakam groups that are still pretty understanding and pretty high spirituality, but the first thing that's happened is they've lost their telepathic skills.
Yes, and they communicate in hand signs. Like we had one that was more like a child. He called himself Falling Water, and he was very much like a. It wasn't even adolescent. It was more like a child of like maybe 7 years old, and that was the basics of his communication skills. He could speak. I just happened to be able to hear into the spectrum or frequency that he was in. I could clearly see him, and he also had orbs that were conjured around him. But he was speaking in hand signs, doing little like basically like how you communicate to deaf people with sign language. And he spoke in broken English when he was hearing me speak enough. He was able to enunciate certain words and tones after a while. But he had more the personality of a kid. He was a protector. He basically he felt a lot of love for us, so much so he was very brutal to the bad guys that would show up. He was very violent towards them, and the elder Squatch had to call him to task on that. After a while, we lost contact with him. They didn't want anybody even inadvertently promoting that level of brutality. They were trying to teach some of their wayward brothers and sisters a better way of doing things. Also, in the Anakam class ones, the elder class, you'll notice that some of them are depicted as wearing armor or helmets or carrying weapons, technology. Um, that's how they started out. That's how the race started out. And then you have the other ones here that have like no clothing. That sometimes it's preferential to who it is. Fuma doesn't wear anything. He's a big, black haired and gray haired Sasquatch. He doesn't wear anything. His brother Sumar doesn't wear anything, or Seymour rather. But Sufas, he'll have like jewelry and stuff like that on. It's a preference thing. But I've also noticed some of the guards that were from Agartha wear armor plating across their chest, and they carry staff weapons with them. It's just which tribe of them you run into. Now, I ran into one that hangs out around the Camp Crystal mine in Arkansas, and he called himself Nim Nim, and he's an elder Anakam Squatch. And he is more or less like a wise old man, kind of like that character in Lion King, which was the baboon. He was kind of like that. I mistook him for a face eater because he had kind of the appearance of a baboon. But there is a race of them out there that look like that. Hanuman, the Monkey King, is a member of that society, and he was from Lemuria. There's a group of them also from Lemuria, who you may have heard of, the Sasquatches that have virtually no neck, where they're very hunched. Fuma is kind of like that, but Seymour has more of a regular head like mine. The ones with the virtually no neck are ones from the West Coast, and they are a descendant lineage from ancient Lemuria. And this is why on Vancouver Island they call that Ape Island. And you see the big burly Sasquatches that are there because Vancouver Island was a fragment of ancient Lemuria. So this is why you see that particular lineage. You just see different ones wherever you go, like in Australia. You see the ones they call the Yowie. They have a slightly different look to it, where they have kind of like this weird frizzed hair look, and they range from all the colors of them, like black, brown, red, orange, blonde, same way we have them, but their hair is a little different and their height is a little different. I would say if you compared Fuma to a Yowie, the Yowie are a little taller as far as like height goes, but the ones from here are a little burlier and muscular. That there's a slight bit of difference there. Then you have this baboon race that's like Hanuman, the Monkey King. Even though he's depicted as a regular monkey, he's a member of this other society that look kind of like monkeys and baboons. And then you have the face eaters, which are essentially very large baboons with pointed heads. And in the face, they look like a baboon and have the same temperament as a baboon. They're the most degenerated ones on the scale. Essentially, I call them trolls. And
but even though you say that and you think they're more animalistic, they have very strong mental influencing skills. And so this is, again, I think what gets hard sometimes, people have to really let certain thoughts and biases go, is we're used to seeing animal races, and they're not human. They don't have the reasoning skills. So it's a normal human process that your mind categorizes things. And so you see a Sasquatch, or you see a race of species that look like dogs standing on their feet and whatever. It's very hard for humans to change that mind process to think, oh my God, these are actually real intelligent, very strong, maybe have more skills than we do races out there. And so you have to kind of let some of that go. But then you have to understand within that race, there's a wide variety. So my curiosity is because, I want to ask a question about, again, the ones we refer to as the face eaters, the ones that are de-evolved. But when the space between from where you get to the races that are here walking amongst us that we know are telepathic, have a broader understand the hardships humans are going through, those protectors. And then you go down the next level where, they may have lost the ability to have telepathy, but they can learn to speak very quickly by listening to you or listening to other things, because they're actually very intelligent. But they still maybe have an understanding their preference would be to be friendly towards humans. Then you go another step further, and you have the Sasquatch groups that kind of don't have that broader understanding, and they may actually see some of the impact that humanity's had in nature and not be happy very with upset, it, and be very upset. And so now you have a turn to where they're kind of anti-humans because of their perspective where they are, and they just want nature preserved in their environment preserved, and they know what we do in ours affects them. And then I guess then you get into the face eaters. I'm assuming that's kind of the levels we're talking about.
Yes, and those particular ones are ones that are responsible for some missing persons out there. They, the aliens, the Archontic forces, are solely responsible for harnessing them as a workforce to abduct people down here sometimes. Like on the side of the road, you'll hear a story of a car that's been on the side of the road. You'll hear clothes being neatly folded on the side of the road. That person has just wandered off into the woods. Face eater grabs them. Either that person's dead or they've been abducted to an alien spacecraft somewhere for the slave trade. So if you hear about any of the missing persons things that the Sasquatch are responsible, that is not entirely true. That is the face eater clans and some of the really more degenerated types out there doing this.
Now, believe it or not, this experience happened to me in North Carolina. The job that I have would take me all around the state. So I'd be driving by myself to go different places for in-servicing or different things. And I was driving in a very, very remote part of North Carolina. And the weirdest thing happened. And I came home and I told Chris about it. And he reached out also to the guide that was with me at the time and basically said, believe it or not, you were trying to be heavily influenced, because I was alone on this road by the face eaters, basically. But I'll tell you the experience, because it was so weird. I was driving and perfectly fine, listening to the radio, nothing is going on. And then all of a sudden, I had this just exhaustion coming over me, where I was literally going to, while I'm driving, shut my eyes. It's very hard to explain what this feels like. In my ears, I also kind of hear this. It's kind of weird because it was kind of mechanical sounding, almost like a door being slammed or something like that happening, with this really loud mechanical noise. And I was like popped out of this stupor that was coming over me. And what we found out is that the guide had intervened. And basically what I heard was the shutdown of what was being aimed literally at me at that second in time. But it just, how the sensation to shut down came over me just like that, and then wham, how it was gone just like that. It was really a weird experience. But I can imagine, just from that little experience that I had, probably what would have happened is that I'm not saying I would have lost consciousness and I would have driven myself off the road and crashed, but I could definitely see I would have lost knowing consciousness and potentially,
be more susceptible,
potentially then have just gone off and again been one of those potential people who would have just gotten out of their car, stripped down and walked off into the woods. It was a very wild experience. And again, we always tell people that sometimes we think we gain these experiences so that we can tell you
better,
and tell you guys, wow, this is so weird. So I wanted to just kind of share that with you, that yes, that, and it's very, I feel for the people that this happens to. They do not know what they're doing. I can tell you that. They have no clue what is happening to them. So anyway, but again, here you have a race of beings that kind of degenerated into the more bamboo looking, whatever. But these beings, this race is strong enough to know what it's doing, and everything. And so don't misjudge things at all. You're not dealing with an animal like you would think a baboon in a zoo. You're not dealing with that. You're actually dealing with a completely different race of beings.
That they're very, very degenerated mentally wise. They're very barbaric. These are the people. These are the beings that people misinterpret as normal Sasquatches and think Sasquatches are all bad because based on this. I believe the reason that race has any telepathic skill at all is because I believe it's AI enhanced. That they were basically harnessed a long time ago by the bad guys to be one of their workforces, and so they could go after humans and abduct people. And like I said, you'll hear stories about the Sasquatch being abductors. and that, like I said, is not true. There was a story also in North Carolina when we were there. When we were out in the front yard, and I could actually feel this influence on me. And I also, in a partial visual sense, I saw a spear shoot past me and drop onto the porch. I turn around, there's a group of face eaters there. They do carry, some of them do carry weapons like clubs, rocks, war clubs, stuff like that too, like you'd expect a caveman to do. And I was able to shoo them off energetically. Well, there was a group of birds in the tree next to us. There was a couple of hawks in the tree next to us that were just screeching. This is also how you can tell when some of these creatures are around. The other animals will be warning you about their presence. Reptilians included in that as well. Mm-hmm. These two hawks were just bouncing up and down on, wah, wah, wah. And eventually when I shoot off the face eaters energetically, you could hear these birds following them through the neighborhood screaming at them, so you knew there was something physically present. And people always ask me, well, how do I come in communication with Sasquatch, or basically any of these other galactics? Do you have to go to a certain place? No, they feel what's in your heart space. The actual Sasquatch and Anakim peoples know what's in your heart space and know that you want communication. They will telepathically and energetically communicate with you no matter where you are. Now, if you want to leave gifts for them, yeah, go out into an area that you feel is safe for them to come by and pick the gifts up.
But in general, when you say that if you're reaching out to telepathically to have a benevolent encounter, again, hopefully you don't attract the malevolent ones, that you have to be careful. You have to always protect yourself.
They're not in all areas either.
They're not. And that's why you have different reports of different people in different areas have their own opinion of what they think of this race. But in general, the ones that are going to be receiving that cry for, I would like to maybe communicate, are the ones that are going to be on this earth that normally can, of course, because they're going to hear it telepathically, have a telepathic way in general of communicating. And so just be aware of that. But they've told us they're everywhere. And part of the reason why they're more places than we think is because they don't normally reside in this frequency that you and I are in. It's the reason we're not seeing them all over the place.
Yeah, that people think that they're invisible, that they jump in and out of visibility, and that's not necessarily true. Can some of the elder ones and some of the younger ones also take like an orbital form? Yeah, that's true, but more often than not, like 9/10 of the time, they are sliding in and out of like a Rolodex of different frequencies using sound and light waves. Fuma and Telnorskas at the time explained it as a range of vocal pitches they can hit to be able to put themselves in different frequencies. That's what I was. So that's why I see things as partially visible all the time. Any galactic that shows up, because I'm actually able to see into the frequency that they're in. It's just like, say you have a radio dial that's only partially on one station and partially on another. I'm looking in that. I'm in that in between area where I'm seeing into the next frequency, and that's where Semar and Fuma and Sufas. That's where their tribe is sitting. I'm believing that the fifth density that they are in. And some of them are higher, like some of the Anakim. But I believe that's, since we're so close to 5D, the edge of 5D, and some areas of the Earth are already in 5D, I believe that's where we're seeing into. Now, the ones that are sighted visually, full, like you'd expect them to be the most, are usually adolescent and children Sasquatches that are usually not supposed to be wandering into certain areas, and people photograph them, or people actually catch them. And you may be asking, well, then why did they, with the Patterson-Gimlin film, how did they capture that one so easily?
Because that was an adult female.
That was an adult female and with a little baby, and it's because she was coerced by the Draco reptilians, the spindly beings, and the Cabal that day. And it was a very tragic incident because one of her children got killed as a result. And I've communicated with the one known as Patty before. and she is usually very reluctant to communicate. And she also does not like the standard picture where you see the image of her looking back over the shoulder like that, because according to the Sasquatch and the Anakim peoples, that is considered more profane. They don't like it. They don't like the Draco. They are currently at war with the Draco because of stuff like this. So just know also, if you're a Sasquatch enthusiast, I don't want to say hunter because that has a bad connotation. They don't like that either. Anything weapon related, they don't like it. Yeah, or hunting related, they don't like it. Any Sasquatch enthusiast. How was I going to say this? Oh, now it just left me. Oh, that's not good.
That's okay. It'll come back to you. Let me change the subject, because you go back to the adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when people are having sightings, there may be of something 8 foot, 9 foot, something like that. That's what you normally see. But actually, an adult male, what's the range for an actual adult male?
With Fuma, he is generally, I believe he's at least 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
They generally will range, an adult male will generally range from 8 to 10 feet. Adult female, between 7 to 10 feet. I have seen Sasquatches that are taller. Usually the really, really huge ones are face eaters. The face eaters are taller. They are like almost 15 feet high, just like a Draco reptilian. They are actually humongous, and they're a little more muscular in the shoulders. That's why the Sasquatch kind of regard them as one of the lost ones. They're very similar to the Draco in that respect, and very mentally manipulated. But yeah, when I was starting to talk before, I had that other stuff pulled out of my head by Seymour, because he wanted us to focus on some more of the details and not the warring that was going on. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So in general, what I want people to understand is, they recognize, again, we're talking about the groups that are higher and understand what's a better perspective of what's really going on with the energies, how humanity has been and now trying to come out of all the oppression. They're very, very supportive of that. Again, they want to get back to having good, relations where people see each other. But here we have perceptions of apes and gorillas and all these wild animals. We see a Sasquatch, especially one that's about twice your height, 10 foot tall or whatever. And it scares, it can scare you. And so part of what they've been actively doing is allowing for sightings to occur, allowing for these coming into the frequency or whatever, because it's inevitable that we're moving into the frequency where they're going to be visible on a day-to-day basis. The goal is to not obviously scare people or whatever. But I will tell you again that on the same day, your mother and I both, it's like we were being tested. Here we talk about this stuff all the time. We know they're out there. We know they're big. We both had some missing time, and come to find out on the same day, we were both, I like to walk, so I was on a walk, and she was doing something else. We were visited, and we both failed miserably. Apparently, not only did we become afraid, again, of beings that we communicate to etherically, show up, and here we are both little baby girls all of a sudden who terrified, and they wiped both of our memories of the encounter, because that's not the goal. And so this is very a stepping stone to introduce these groups, to us. And again, if they're normally on another frequency, it's why you're not finding any dead ones anywhere. It's why you're not finding bones. It's why you're not finding things. Humanity has to expand their awareness of different frequencies and beings being able to live in different frequencies, and this whole concept before you're ready for some of this. So it's a slow, steady encounter, but definitely one that is kind of coming is coming our way and coming your way. It's just going to slowly happen. But the goal again is, if someone's put in fear, if they want to defend themselves and they get into that mindset, or we have to kill them, or they're going to overtake, that's certainly not helpful to moving ahead and becoming a part of the galactic community. So we have to slowly get introduced to some of these very, very real races out there.
And also they wanted people to know that they may be related to apes, but they are not wood apes. It's different. You know how they always say we humans evolved from apes. This is not true of humans. We have spliced DNA in us, that we are a cousinship to the Sasquatch, but they were the ones in some respects that have altered ape DNA. And there are ape species out there amongst the stars as well that they descend from. Okay, yeah, that they wanted to make that clear. There's a couple outside that were making sure that that was accurately depicted. We can go into the ancient history about them later on, but they want to make that clear that they are being compared to a, they would say, they're saying dumber, but they don't want to give bad character to any of their offshoot lineages or any like ape species or anything, but they want to tell they're not an animal like some people say. They are the same as us, even though they are, some of them are further along in their evolutionary state and their molecular cellular solid abilities, and they can feel and hear the thoughts and feelings of others, not just when they're close by, but on a quantum level. You can say the Anakim are quantumly based. They are, well, the reason they pulled me out of that other mindset is they're basically saying, let them handle the war part, we handle our evolutionary part to be able to build the bridge of communication with them. Humans have had their war period for too long. Now we are actually here to help evolve ourselves up to that level. And they said, besides, if we tried to wage war on the Draco the same as them, we would, I'm being told we would get in the way. So as good intentioned as it is.
And this has been a frustration of yours, to be honest.
Yeah, they said they're saying even the most advanced human in the fighting arts, martial arts, weapon skills, even with nano enhancements and everything, would have a very difficult time even taking on several 15-foot draconians. So they're basically saying leave that fighting to them. You can defend yourself energetically and save, even if something would attack you out there. Yes, defend yourself, but they're saying they're doing the cleanup work in that area.
In the physical.
Yes. In the physical, yeah.
And etherically, spiritually, humans are very powerful once you know how to work those protection and co-creative skills, and there's a lot that can be done. But as a literal face-to-face encounter, being on the same frequencies, that's what they're saying. Humans are not physically strong enough to do it, but on a etheric, energetic level, in that setting, they are. So that's pretty interesting. I am curious, since they're here, if I can just ask a question. So it seems to me that there's a big connection with a lot of these people to the elder Anakim. So like, you have the elder Anakim. I don't know another way to say this, kind of showing up as their spiritual leaders to help them at times. Okay, so I'm assuming the face eaters don't see the Anakim, or do they? No. Okay, so at what level? So the level at which we were talking about the Sasquatch, the ones that don't have the understanding of the energies are going around, they don't have the understanding of humanity and what humanity's been through, they just see kind of humanity as destroying nature. At that level, those races, do they see Anakim?
Yes, of course. Some of the Anakim share their concerns. So this shows even if you're high up in frequency, you're still of the same range of feelings. Do some of them feel that humanity is taking too much, very much like the Myrmidon do? Yes, of course. And I believe Fuma and Seymour share in that, not to the violent extent, but in a concern extent. Like they will try to telepathically sway humans from cutting a bunch of trees down or doing stuff like that. Like if they want a certain patch of nature left alone, they'll put a bunch of unmasked telepathic signals out to try to sway people away or put up some perception filter or something like that. That's how they hide sometimes in the woods, even though they are in different frequencies. How they keep people away from their encampments and colonies is they'll stick up perception filters so you're constantly walking in a circle or something in the woods. They're trying to keep humans away from their colonies. They have sentinels that are posted all over the place that will do that. But in nature protection itself, are there some groupings of them that aim at human, like construction workers and all that, so that they're not clearing forest areas out? Oh yeah, they keep people away, or they will spook people to keep people away, since people are already afraid of big hairy beasts in the woods. Sometimes they'll jump out of them and go boogie boogie, and they'll run away, and the workers won't want to work there anymore. They'll think it's haunted, or there's demons in the woods or something like that. They did that to, they're pointing out that they said we did it to earlier Viking tribes as well. That's why, they said that's why Leif Erikson and his father Eric the Red thought there were hairy demons in the woods.
Okay.
As they were keeping them out of their colony territories at the time. They said, that's a little history for you. Right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So on a spiritual level, I think there's a similarity with humans, meaning on a cellular level, in the skin suit that they are in, or the skin suit that the Sasquatch are in, there can only be so much advancement going on at a period of time, because the cells have to adjust, spirituality has to change. So even with the Anakim visiting some races that are at a certain mindset, just like we say with humans, you're not going to overnight just poof and be like quantum levels ahead in your thinking or spirituality. It's going to be the process. So I found that interesting. I was really interesting to know that they were being visited, and at the pace, I'm assuming, that the tribe can handle, just like with humanity, with the frequencies rising, that those groups as well are slowly going to be advancing in their spirituality to eventually regain their telepathic skills within that group and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes. They're slowly getting some of their own, not necessarily lost kind. They didn't lose them. They're just the descendant lineage that has been in this energy on Earth for a long time, around humans and around the destructive archontic energies. So they're having to pull them back out of it.
And that's important for people to know, because again, we keep reiterating that don't be misled to think that all beings in a different frequency other than ours are all benevolent and are omnipotent somehow. They're just experiencing a lot of the same things, just literally vibrating in a different frequency, where there's good and bad, and there's still a ton of growth that everyone goes through. So we say that not just with, obviously, with this race, but with any race that's out there. Don't misunderstand. And this is why I think the galactics and the different races hate us, but I don't know any other way to say it. This is where we are right now, where words are lacking in description, because we only have a way to talk about rising in frequency like this. So you think lower and higher. It's not that.
It's like faster, slower, like molecular rates.
Yeah, so like different different frequencies are just vibrating differently. Not better, not worse, just different, and then thus having different experiences. These are very hard concepts.
And some races use technology to do that, like the Draco and some of those reptilian races. They cheat. They use technology. They're sitting in 5D right now. Many people think they're hitting from a lower density No, they're hitting from basically what we would consider a higher number one. So.
But are they themselves necessarily in that higher density? No, if they didn't have the technology to be sitting there, they wouldn't be there on their own naturally.
No.
So it's very complicated because there is technology out there with some of these races. And I don't mean to digress to a different subject, but just to make people aware that it's very complicated. And so don't go in this with a predetermined mindset. Be open to just getting the information of what is versus then making an assumption of what is, because you're going to be mistaken a lot of times.
You're going to be very unpleasantly surprised if you go down that route.
Unfortunately. So, since they're here, again, this being the first show, and we didn't want to go over an hour. We just wanted to help people understand first the generalities and the wide range of the different groups within the Sasquatch community that are all around us. Is there something in particular we left out that you guys want to make sure we say?
Sorry, everybody, I have a cold. So, there's still continuing communication. There's still, you can still leave gifts for them. But they're saying be careful of some of the deeper wooded areas during this conflict time. They said the Draco are trying to huddle in caverns to get away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fuma interrupted and said, since we're such badasses. And Seymour was like, hey, and just shushed him away.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, in all actuality, we're kicking their ass. So they're huddled in caverns. But they come out periodically to try to grab people. The face eaters, it's the same way. On the other end of the country, the face eaters are mainly huddled in the Smoky Mountains and by the Dismal Swamp there. Not near as much as it was a couple of years ago when we first spoke about this, but some there. Okay. And they still want to continue communications. Now, they're insisting that we don't have to be in a wooded area to communicate with them, like what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it helps if you want to try to gain face-to-face contact, but they're not going to risk that right now. They want to very badly, but they don't want to spook anybody. And also the fact that they're sitting in a different frequency, if we were around them enough, our energy wouldn't be able to handle it. There's a story of a Tibetan monk that sat with two Sasquatch or Anakim within a temple, and they were in a quiet meditative state. The two Sasquatches eventually had to leave because their energy was overpowering the monk, even being in that quiet state without speaking or no anxiety at all, just being emotionally neutral. So imagine them in a high anxiety state. That's another reason that we can't fight alongside them, is because we would probably get fried by the frequencies.
And that's normal physics. It's just normal physics, everybody, that, again, I don't know any other way to say this, but lower and higher, that a lower frequency will want to naturally rise up to the higher one. That's spoken about in all physics. The problem is that the body that we are in and where it's vibrating may not be able to handle that rapid rise, thus people getting hurt. And I relate that back. I'll only give one quick example. I'm going to completely, and some of you may have heard me say this before, but again, it's when you have the experience of what that means that it's really meaningful. So we're not Sasquatch, but Helios. So there was one day at the house in Raleigh where you were going to get a chance to bring in Helios for a little bit of a discussion. Now, this was Chris several years ago. He wasn't as strong and his body wasn't as ready as it is now. So he needed a ton of beings to come in to filter. So if you can imagine Helios over here, tons of beings in between them and Chris, so that Chris could hear the message from Helios without being fried. So I was just literally sitting on the opposite end of the table, and Chris is talking, and he got to a point of saying, Helios was saying, I gotta leave now. There's gonna, this transmission needs to end. I gotta go now. And I think I swear to God, no more than 10 seconds more of conversation happened, and Haley's just like, man, I gotta leave. Well, at that moment in time, I have no other way to describe it except this burning electrical shock. It came from underneath the floor and started going up my left foot to the point that I was getting ready to scream bloody murder. It hurt so bad, this electrical shock. But as soon as Helios disengaged from Chris, it was gone. So I think that was my little experience, again, to try to help people understand that it really isn't a joke. There's a reason why we can't just jump to one place or another. This physical body has to be adapted to the frequencies that we're going into, or it will cause physical pain and physical destruction. It really will. And I will never forget that very quick experience I had, because I couldn't believe it. And it reminds me, again, not to bring in religion, of the old stories that says that you couldn't hear the voice of God because your head would explode. And I'm like, I believe it. I believe now after that, if we're too far apart in frequency and we're trying to have certain relations with something, it would be too much for us.
And also vice versa for beings that are up here, so to speak. I hate saying here, up here and down here, but too far apart this way, you can actually influence theirs as well. Even by looking into their realm, you could actually cause disruption by being in a lower frequency. I found out it's basically the mass torsion field that wins in this particular venture. Like, since we're here on Earth and a lot of people are here in like this borderline third, fourth density, you look into somebody who has 12th density, they're going to consider you toxic. This is why the Untumban people wear armor and masks whenever I encounter. That's a proto-Japanese culture. This is why they wear that whenever we encounter them. They even depicted that on Babylon 5 with the Vorlons wearing their encounter suits because of the frequency differential being toxic to them. Just like their frequency prolonged would harm us. It goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. So just be aware of that. And this is where, again, we always say, keep working on yourself, keep raising, your internal frequency. If you want to have experiences, just put it out there and just keep working on yourself, because you've got to get it to a certain place before you actually can have an encounter. And then, it is a process. We're learning and growing through it. And you just have to be patient. You have to be patient and just keep working at it. So I think that's pretty good for a kind of first conversation on this.
First conversation, yeah. There's going to be several more of these we plan on doing. Since I'm not on another particular Sasquatch show anymore, I will not go into that at the moment. But needless to say, we are doing our own thing. So, yeah.
I'll go into it.
Yes.
So this is what happens, because this is actually a natural process. And the only reason I'm going to go into it is because many of you are experiencing things like this, and there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with other people, but you're going to run across times where you're going to cross paths because you're beating at a close enough frequency. But if, as people learn and grow, then you just have sometimes natural parting of the ways, because people are just at different places.
Mm-hmm.
And so you wish everybody well. And it's a skill to learn in grace, just to let go. Because again, when you may work with somebody for a while, and then there's differencing opinion, frequencies are changing. What happens for both parties, or the multiple parties, is that if you can just go in grace, then each party is open to now having an experience more in line with the frequency that they're vibrating at. And so, just remember that in your own lives. You're potentially going to start to notice that friends you had before that you're feeling like you're drifting away from, or you just can't share with them anymore, or they're just not agreeing. It's okay. There's nothing wrong. This is a natural part of the growth. No one's right and no one's wrong. Everybody's allowed to have their own experience at the pace that they want it. That is just something you have to foundationally accept in your heart. And then you just move on in grace and just continue to grow and flourish, and others will continue to grow and flourish at their own pace as well. So just that last bit of saying. And again, thank you for joining us tonight, everybody. And hopefully you will enjoy these shows. I know Chris is looking forward to doing this with some folks. And see you next time.
Bye-bye. Bye.